Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. We're going to take an in-depth look here at a recent fire last night, and we'll be talking with Joe Pulvermacher, Chief of Fitchburg Fire Rescue, here in just a minute. But first, we wanted to set you up here from the structure fire last night that Fitchburg Fire Rescue responded to.
Fitchburg Fire Department responded to the report of a house fire at about 7:30 this evening. There was no reports of anybody on the inside, but upon arrival, we did have active fire. It forced us to initiate a structure fire alarm, which got us some mutual aid from the town of Madison and the village of Oregon. We were also able to utilize Fitch-Rona EMS, and the Fitchburg Police Department was on scene to assist as well. Police Department was the first to arrive. They did not see anything that suggested that we had anything to worry about with rescue. They did do a 360 on the building, walking all the way around, and once again, no signs of anybody on the inside. Fitchburg Engine 3 arrived on scene, and they were able to verify through their first-in report that we had active fire, smoke, and flames. And what they were able to do is make entry and control the fire. As luck would have it, our truck was at our fire station number 1. They were doing company exercises, and as a result, our response time was reduced, with both units arriving on scene at about the same time. The fire did self-vent. What that means is we do have some exterior damage. There is some damage to the attic space, and we do have some fire spread that happened on the inside. Luckily, we don't have much in the way of a structural issue on the second or the first floor, but the attic space is of concern to us right now, and we're keeping an eye on that. Upon that, we sort of just held the building so that we could investigate it. At this point, the cause of the fire is really unknown, but we do have investigators on the inside to give us a full report. City of Fitchburg has a fire investigative unit that we called in as soon as we saw the extent of this fire and the fact that we just wanted to make sure that we were touching all bases. What they are able to do is they're able to work with the Fitchburg Police Department, and through not only investigation but anything that's collected on scene, pictures and otherwise, is handled through the investigative unit at the police department. We work together that way. We work to our strengths. We help identify cause and origin, and the police department is the one that collects anything that we would need to maintain and have a chain of evidence. We are trying to estimate the total dollar loss for this fire. At this point, it's unknown, but we can safely say it's going to be probably $10,000 worth of damage. It's hard to say at this point until we get some further information. They will have to do some structural modifications to the building once we are able to finish our portion of the investigation. I think what happened well at this fire is the fact that we had some conscientious neighbors who knew that something didn't appear right. They called 911. We were able to respond soon enough to be able to make a stop. This building will likely stand and will likely be available for somebody else to occupy. So the quick response of the neighbors and the quick response of the fire department and all of the help that we received from EMS, police, and our mutual aid partners really made this fire a successful incident.
All right, there you have it. That was the voice of Joe Pulvermacher. Now joins me here in studio. Joe, after the investigation started, you guys were investigating, and you guys were called back a few times overnight. I wanted to take the opportunity to have you explain a little bit why this can happen.
Sure.
And some explanation, because I think it's good to people should know one way or the other, kind of the operations of behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely. And for clarification, we were called back once, not multiple times. Just putting it out there. But
Sure you were.
I mean, we take this seriously. I mean, this obviously is somebody's property loss, and we don't necessarily want to minimize some of the things that can happen when somebody loses their property. But in this situation, we were somewhat fortunate in the fact that we had a vacant property. It happened at night. At least the rekindle happened at night, so it was it was harder to detect by neighbors. The earlier fire had been detected by somebody who was observant and saw something that was out of order and placed a call to 911. In the middle of the evening or the early morning hours, we don't necessarily have that. So sometimes you sometimes miss out on those clues. Now in this one caught us a little bit by surprise. And I say that because of the fact that after we extinguished the fire, we had been on scene for a good 2 hours after that conducting an investigation. And during that investigation, we had atmospheric conditions within normal limits. Our breathing air was fine. We didn't have any sign of fire or smoke. Generally speaking, when you've had a larger fire, you'll still have smoke in the air and you'll keep somebody there to make sure that you monitor the situation. But we walked away from that fire thinking we had it extinguished. Not to mention the fact that there was a board-up company there after us who also didn't report anything that was outside of the ordinary. So when we were called back later with the volume of fire that we had, it was concerning in the sense that it wasn't necessarily typical, but we were able to extinguish it. It was a larger fire when we arrived the second time. There was more damage associated with the fire, and as a result, we have investigators out there again. We are partnering with the Fitchburg Police Department and DCI through the state of Wisconsin to conduct a thorough investigation, and I just think that's something that we have to do to just rule out all possibilities and make sure that we're not overlooking anything, especially if we've had something that's grown rapidly. We'd like to learn from that, and if there's something else that we could have done as a fire department, we need to know it. And if there's something that contributed to it that needs to be put out there for consumer protection or anything like that, we also need to know that. So yeah, not the best chain of events to happen when you're fighting fire, to be called back to the same building, but it does happen on occasion, and that's because of the fact that in our residences, in our buildings, we have a number of different spaces that are concealed, and we may not see all of the embers or all of the heat. And we scanned this property significantly. We have multiple thermal imagers. We have one on each one of our main firefighting vehicles, and each one of our firefighters, or at least our company officers, were able to monitor that environment, that situation, to ensure that we didn't have any heat built up and we didn't have to cool down any hot spots. So a little bit surprising for us, but we were able to take, and there is one other thing that we do during these fires, and we asked the police department to do a fire watch. So they will patrol the neighborhood just to make sure, and that's how this was caught. A police officer was driving by and they saw that there was fire inside the building, knew that wasn't normal, knew that we had a fire earlier, and called in for a full response. One thing that we did in addition last night, because of the fact that we had crews on scene that had worked both fires, we called for a box alarm, which just gave us more equipment from around the greater Dane County area, allowed us to cycle some crews through that maybe were already a little bit tired, and allowed us to get some fresh firefighters in there to do the work that was associated with overhaul and eventual extinguishment.
Yeah, I think it's a good explanation, and it can happen. It can be common in fires, but I think it was a good opportunity here, and I like the fact that you put it out there that you want to learn from it too. I mean, you want to learn from every fire that you go to, whether you have to come back or whatever the case may be. You're analyzing everything you guys do to put that back into to a better response, better opportunity, if you will, to have a successful fire. And saying that in a successful way, when you said that last night too, I was thinking to myself, successful fire doesn't sound right, but
no, well, you got to put it into the perspective of the firefighter. A firefighter. I sometimes joke a little bit about this, but I dream in disasters. I mean, the fact of the matter is I try to predict the worst things that can happen. Last night was really no different, and the fact that we were able to control that fire and keep it to its area of origin, the fact that we didn't have any hot spots when we left, from a professional standpoint, from a training standpoint, yeah, that's success. When you're able to apply your skills and to do it in a way that people go home, nobody's injured, we didn't have a significant loss of property, that is success. when you come back, based on the fact that we had the rekindle, there's also things that have to be learned. And I think whenever you have a dynamic department, one that's really good and one that is capable of learning not only from the things that it does well, but the things that it needs improvement on, that is what you eventually want in any service that you have. And City of Fitchburg's pretty fortunate, and I was fortunate to walk into a department that had some really good people, and we're just trying to maintain that. We're trying to maintain that level of training, and we're trying to make sure that we're ready for the next one. If something else presents similar to this, we will know how to handle it because we've seen it before.
Joe, thank you so much for stepping in this morning. Get some rest. Hope the crews get some rest, and we'll talk soon.
I'm going to hit the Fact TV coffee pot if that's all right.
Fantastic. Right. We got some truck stop brew for you over there. All right, that's Joe Pulvermacher. We'll take a quick break, wrap up the show next. You are watching Talking Fitchburg.